Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the channel. It is 5:44 a.m. East Coast time, Thursday, August 8th. So I am back once again, like I said in the video 2 days ago on Tuesday, August 6th, that I would come back on Thursday, update everybody on the news and notes because we were going to get a lot more news and notes. Some of the picks that I gave would not be as relevant, some would be more relevant, and there'd be new players that I would introduce with the new news that we have digested over the last day and a half to 2 days. I follow about 300 people on a list on the NFL, and there are thousands of tweets a day, and I analyze all of them, and I quickly do it and skim, and I see what news is important and which one's just coach speak. So I have a lot of more information for you in terms of news, in terms of notes, in terms of stuff for season-long fantasy, and for today's 11-game, I'm so happy, 11-game preseason slate. This is going to be fun. So if you're new to the channel, welcome. I cover daily fantasy sports in the NFL, like you're seeing right here, the NBA, which is not till October, WNBA, and MLB. WNBA and MLB videos are already up. Big announcement, my NFL Daily Fantasy course is actually on sale today. You can get a link down below, or you can sign up down below to the email opt-in, so you can get a promo code if you'd like to save money. There'll be a promo code sent via that by 10 a.m. Eastern time today. If you're watching this later on, it'll still be sent. Just ask for it. Once I get your email, I'll be sending it back out. I'll push another one out. That's only for today only. It's an early bird special. Otherwise, the link to the course will be down below. You can check that out. There's a link to Patreon down below where all my exclusive content for the NFL, the MLB, and the WNBA stands. If you don't know what Patreon is, just click the link and it'll say, okay, here's a video of Sal for a minute and a half to 2 minutes. He's going to tell you what's in these packages. He's going to tell you what Patreon is. You can look at all the packages. NFL is going to have a ton of stuff. Live streams are going to have all the stat sheets, articles for every single position. Very excited. Free things down below as well. There are going to be free strategy guides, 2 of them. Check those out as well. And before we get into it, like button, subscribe button. I can't tell you how excited I am. This channel has grown from less than 1,000 to start the year to 6,000, or about 6,000. We're only 150 away, so help me out today. And yeah, let me get your candid feedback, and we will get into it. One thing that I will address is somebody brought up my take on ownership in the last video, saying that it's not important. That was not my take. I probably spoke that wrong, in a wrong way. I talk about it on the course. It is not nearly as important as other sports. Other sports, to win a tournament, you need to have somewhere around 8 to 10% combined ownership in your lineups. For the NFL, to win Millie Makers, it's been on average out of the 45 Millie Makers in the past 3 years since they started it. It's been closer to 20%, hovering around 20%, 18 to 20%, which just shows you that it is half as important for big field tournaments in the NFL. And that does not just a Millie Maker. I've studied other tournaments as well. And it's because there's just more options. There's way more options than golf. Golf is more variant. Baseball is more variant. And there's just way more options overall. So that is why I think it's less important than those sports. I show in the course many of things on how you can still be chalky and still win a tournament by, like, as often as other people do. The average Millie Maker ownership is 18 to 20%, which means that every guy they're rostering is around 18% at the low end. Obviously, it averages together, so they'll have their 5% guy and one higher up. But that's just my take. It is still important with certain aspects in the NFL. It is not nearly as important as every single other sport. So, well, the other major sports. So let's get into this video. We'll start with the news and notes. Again, like button, subscribe button. Hopefully you enjoy this. Hopefully you saw the other video to get some kind of background on what the NFL camps have been doing. So I'm just going to read off my phone because I have all the notes right here, and then I'll get into some of the players. So, I mean, obviously a couple of things to point out is with this first preseason game, if you're not familiar, the first teams, a lot of the starters aren't going to play, obviously, but then they're going to play a quarter at most, probably 2 possessions. Go for 2 drives if you are starting this game as a player who's going to be playing week 1. After that, the second unit is going to come in, and then the second half is all going to be the 25 last guys on the bubble for the rosters. All the young guys, the guys who are trying to make the team, all of them are going to be in the second half. That's why you see these highest point total right now in Vegas is like 37 for the highest total game. Lots of them are hovering below 35. Well, because half of these guys playing are going to be like on the streets in a couple of weeks. So just keep that in mind. That's where you're going to find a lot of your value. The guys in the second half, some defenses, things of that nature. So a couple of news to talk about because they're going to affect potentially this slate or the games that are on Friday or whenever they're going to be played. Corey Grant, he signed a 1-year deal with the Packers. The Packers have a lot of injuries right now. If you haven't noticed or kept in line with it, Aaron Jones is battling through a little bit of an injury. Jamal Williams, all of their players right now are battling through injuries, and they have like a fullback on the roster. So in terms of their running back depth, it's not that great. So they did sign Corey Grant to a 1-year deal. I imagine he gets some run in the preseason. Jameis's consistency in camp right now, still not throwing any interceptions, still has some positives on his deep ball, which has been his 2 biggest flaws. Those have been kind of updated and turned around. I have a Trent Cannon update. So in the last video, I said that Trent Cannon was a guy who I was kind of keeping an eye on to see if there's any news going to come out about his position with the team, because he was that guy who in the second half could get a lot of run. Well, lots of news has flipped on that note, and we're going to talk about the guy who in the Jets backfield I have a lot more interest in now once we get to these picks. But Yeah, Trent Cannon actually fumbled later in the day on Tuesday. He is now being regarded as a guy who has now fumbled twice in training camp. He fumbled again yesterday, and he might not even be on this team after the first game, right? So he's still going to get some run, I imagine, in this game, but a guy who's been fumbling in training camp, and there's another guy who's been the hype machine out there, and no, it is not Le'Veon Bell. So we'll get to that. Chris Carson is going to be a pass-catching running back, so for all you season-long names or people, circle Chris Carson right now. They said that they're getting him to be a pass-catching running back with no Mike Davis in Seattle. That is huge news. The pass-catching running back has been kind of evolving. No Chris Davis or no Mike Davis is now making Chris Carson 3-down back with pass catching upside for PPR for DraftKings. This is fantastic. Obviously, it's not going to help too much in the preseason. They're not going to get a lot of run, but in the regular season, keep an eye on this. This is all the news and notes that I've been tracking. Another one, Hunter Renfrow, rookie out of Clemson, 5th-round pick. He is the starting slot wide receiver. He's already been named the starting slot wide receiver. Oakland does not play tonight, but the second that Oakland plays in the preseason, I'm starting this guy. He should be out there for a little bit more than that first quarter if he plays in the second game of the preseason, whatever it might be. He's looked fantastic. It's very rare for a slot receiver to take over the starting job. And not only that, but the guy that was kind of battling him at some regards, already kind of listed as falling down the depth chart, Ryan Grant, suffered an ankle injury. It was an injury. I don't know which one yesterday. So it's only going to shoot Hunter Renfro's ability and his snap percentage and all that even higher. So I'm very high on Hunter Renfrow. I think he's a sleeper for season longs. I think he's going to be a sleeper to start the season in DFS. Circle his name right there with Chris Carson. Chris Carson has much more upside, but circle Hunter Renfrow as a guy who's going to be on the field for like every single snap for Oakland, has a lot of a lower ADOT, so he's going to convert like on those types of things. I think he's going to average 7 targets per game this year. That sounds like a lot, but that's just exactly how this offense is going to be built. Dr. Chow, if you've been keeping up with Antonio Brown news, people are saying he has frostbite on his feet. Do not believe those people. They do not know what they're talking about. He does have something similar to frostbite on his feet from sitting in a cryotherapy, whatever the cold chambers are. But Dr. Chow said it's not frostbite. All the indicators are that it's not frostbite, but it is something else that they don't know what it is. So not great for Antonio Brown. Email always be popping up on me. And then lastly, for some of this news, Josh Dobbs is going to be starting on Friday. They are not going to be playing with Big Ben. Vita Vea is getting an MRI on his knee. Not great. Curtis Samuel still remains the number 1 wide receiver, or the hype for him is becoming that he is the number 1 wide receiver over DJ Moore. Again, circle that, because week 1 over the actual regular season, he is 4,200. DJ Moore is 5,500. You're getting a huge savings for a guy who's been electric in camp right now. Wentz is likely not going to play, and then Dante Moncrief is on pace to solidify the wide receiver 2 job. Wide receiver 2 job in that Pittsburgh offense behind Juju has been a fantasy just mecca the last 10 years, right? Juju has been there. Emmanuel Sanders has been there behind AB. Antonio Brown was the wide receiver 2 behind Mike Wallace. So circle that. That is all the news that we are looking at in terms of not what the picks are, but I do now want to get into the specific player picks. So excited about that. So we're going to start once again, like we did in the last video. Some of these will overlap, some of them won't, and there'll be reasons why they overlap. There'll be reasons why they don't. The first one is Miles Sanders is balling. Miles Sanders continues to play. He had a nice 10-yard touchdown where he bounced it out to the outside on I believe Tuesday after I shot this video, or the first video. So Miles Sanders is going to continue to be a guy that I want to get to. Imagine he plays a whole first quarter. I'd rather have a first quarter of Miles Sanders as the lead back in that offense than have a whole third quarter of a third string guy against a better defense. I don't care. This guy's that good. He has been working on his pass catching game. So Miles Sanders, even in week 1, I'm fine getting to him. Not going to get as much run as some of these other guys, which is worrisome, but he's the same price as these other guys, and he is much better, and he's going to get maybe only, if he has 7 carries and 2 to 3 targets in this game, 10 opportunities, it's going to be very similar than some other players. Keep an eye on if he's playing. The problem is he has to compete with a lot of guys. Right now they're saying he's the RB1. He has to compete with Jordan Howard. He has to compete with Darren Sproles, who came out of retirement or came back. Corey Clement, Josh Adams. There's a loaded backfield back there of 4 guys that can potentially be an RB1. Not a good RB1, but an RB1. They have Miles Sanders. He's been kind of standing out from the pack, so I'm very interested in seeing what he does. We talked about Trenton Cannon. Now he fumbled twice, and I cursed him. Now the guy that's getting all the hype out there is Ty Montgomery. There's a couple articles that were posted about Le'Veon Bell and Adam Gase praising Ty Montgomery as if he was like Saquon Barkley in terms of his skill set. I'm an old Packers fan. They did not use Ty Montgomery properly. I wish he was still out there because he is a versatile gadget player with a lot of upside as both a wide receiver and a running back. They said that they want to get Ty Montgomery a lot of time on the field in the preseason to kind of work out the new kinks of the new Jets offense. A lot of offenses trying to kind of hype themselves up. The Cardinals obviously with Cliff out there kind of bringing his college ways where he played so fast and then the pace to the NFL. The Jets are another team that Adam Gase is trying to implement this new offense of all gadgety type players playing a little bit quicker, even though he plays dead so slow when he was in Miami. So Ty Montgomery is a guy that I would watch. Maybe not so much in preseason week 1. I think I would still get there though today because the price points are all the same. But definitely week 2, definitely week 3, where Le'Veon Bell is probably not going to play the whole preseason. He's not playing in this game. So you're going to see a lot of Ty Montgomery. You're going to see a good amount of Elijah McGuire as the guys I want to get to from the Jets backfield. Not so much Trent Cannon anymore, but Ty Montgomery has been a guy who's skyrocketing up the news, skyrocketing up all the boards out there in Jets camp. The David Montgomery hype machine is going to continue. I don't know how I don't get to this guy today. He's a rookie running back. He should be getting as many opportunities as he can. I imagine they're going to give him at least 10 opportunities. That does not mean that he's going to get 10 rush attempts. He can have 6 rush attempts and 4 targets and only catch one of the targets, but I imagine they want to see as much as they can on all phases of this guy in an actual game in the preseason, or as real as that game can be. So they're going to give him passing opportunities. They're going to give him the ability to block on potentially third downs, run the ball up the middle, run the ball to the outside, where you should really run the ball to the outside every single time. The up the middle is just garbage unless you're on the 1 yard line. But David Montgomery hype, these are not rankings in terms of how I'm saying these players, are just where I wrote them down. But Montgomery would be kind of atop that board in terms of the guy who can break off a 60-yard touchdown today against some backup running or backup D-backs, because he's that good. He's above everybody else in terms of being this Tariq Cohen out there. They have Tariq Cohen, but he's this Tariq Cohen with sort of power, maybe not as shifty as Cohen, right? Fantasy point per touch might not be there as much as Cohen because he kind of broke like all the records last year, but a lot more shifty. Kyler Murray, tune in to see it. Kyler Murray, they want to give us a glimpse of the Cardinals offense, they said, but then they also said tune in to see if he's playing. The fact that they want to give us a glimpse, he said they're going to give us a glimpse of this offense, means, in my opinion, that he kind of let the cat out of the bag. Kyler Murray is going to play. Kyler Murray is a guy that you can roster. I imagine he's going to be over-owned by a ton because he's Kyler Murray. Keep in mind, he's going to play like 2 possessions in this game, the first quarter at most. And he's a running quarterback with upside. So, I mean, he can go out there and he can rush for 60 yards, rush for 50 yards, and there's your upside. And then if he gets a touchdown from the passing game or the rushing game, no, he's already set to be in some winning lineups. The problem is everybody knows who he is. Everybody's anticipating this. People are saying, even though Zion was just kind of in the rookie league, but he only played for like a quarter, so we haven't seen it yet. But people keep saying that Kyler Murray is the most anticipated thing yet. And I get it. He's one of the most freak athletes. I'm not sure if that's definitely the case. But yeah, with Kyler Murray out there, I think he's going to be over-owned. I'm not saying get away from him, but I do think he's going to be over-owned for the fact that he'll play a quarter at most, and that's really at most. So keep in mind Kyler Murray. A player that I'm looking at and a quarterback that I'm looking at is actually Teddy Bridgewater. Sean Payton came out yesterday and kind of gave us some perspectives on what to expect from Teddy Bridgewater. They said that Teddy Bridgewater is going to play a lot. He's going to have a lot of run against his former team, the Vikings. Yeah, that's the exact quote. Certainly going to play a lot this week. So whenever you get a running back or a quarterback who can actually run the ball and has been implemented into offenses, has a lot of faith from his team he's facing. There's your revenge narrative. I don't believe in that stuff, but he is facing the Vikings, his old team. Lots of emotions there. And he's going to get a lot of run. Well, I expect a lot of run to mean like a quarter and a half instead of a quarter for him. So I'm very excited to play Teddy Bridgewater today. I think I'm going to get more of him than a lot of other quarterbacks. In terms of my strategy, yeah, looking at defenses is good. I'm not going through every single defense today, but looking at defenses is okay. You're kind of taking darts, but getting to a lot of running backs, more so over anybody else, wide receivers. But then quarterbacks are the ones that will be in there for the most stable opportunities, right? 15 to 20 overall attempts, whether it's rushing plus throwing. So Teddy Bridgewater is like one of the 2 to 3 quarterbacks who I think are going to have some of the most upside today. The other one, who I'm about to say, is Joe Webb. Yeah, you remember that name? Joe Webb. So Joe Webb is going to be important today because A.J. McCarron is not going to be playing in this game. The backup for the Texans, Deshaun Watson, they said he's going to be very limited. So instead of playing the whole first quarter, maybe just one drive, which is going to be like 4 minutes. So yeah, no Deshaun Watson pretty much for the whole game. A.J. McCarron got hurt with a thumb. He might not play the whole preseason. They don't really have much other depth. Joe Webb is going to get significant run is what the words were. Not just a lot of runs. Oh, there we go. Not just a lot of run, but significant run for Joe Webb today. He's also a running QB as well. So yeah, this is a guy who in the preseason, if they're going to give him a quarter and a half as well, and he could run the ball a lot, he might not be as productive through the air, although he'll be playing third stringers. He's a guy who's going to have opportunity. That's exactly what you're looking for in the preseason. Opportunity with upside. The upside comes from the legs. So yes, Teddy Bridgewater, Joe Webb, both of them in great situations today. Joe Webb in even potentially a better situation because his starting quarterback's not going to play a lot. The third string quarterback, who he is actually, in the backup A.J. McCarron, is not going to be there, and they don't know when he's going to be back. He might miss the whole preseason with a hand or a thumb injury, and then they got to see what they have in Joe Webb 1. And they just need somebody to actually take the time off the field. So that's where we're at. I actually have like 20 things on here, 20 picks, so I'll be a little bit quicker with the rest. 7 is Dwayne Haskins, another quarterback who right now is listed as sort of this QB2, QB3, fighting for that, the rookie quarterback taken out there in Washington. Think he has a lot of upside today for obvious reasons. They want to see as much as they can get out of him, so he's going to be interesting. You can say the exact same thing about Daniel Jones. We talked about Daniel Jones in the previous video. I'll let that video kind of do the talking for Daniel Jones, and just in terms of he's been looking really good in camp. The arm strength is there, although people said that it wasn't going to be there. All the scouts, it has been there apparently, and we'll see how that goes. Apparently he's looked fine, if not fine to good to not great yet, but fine to good in camp. And there's going to be, as the QB2 behind Eli, there's going to be significant opportunity for him, and they want to see that, so I imagine they give him more run. So lots of quarterbacks to pick from. Those are the ones that I'm kind of keying in on. A couple other things. So Tony Pollard, with Zeke potentially threatening a holdout, Tony Pollard has been getting all, and I'm not even saying some, all these first team snaps. He looked good yesterday. He broke out a long touchdown run. He's getting a lot of hype, and they're saying that he's going to get a lot of opportunities in this first game because if there's no Zeke, we have to see what we have in this kid. So Tony Pollard, keep an eye on that name. He's explosive. He can bust out a long touchdown run in a preseason game. He's better than the backup D-backs that will be out there. And I think he will get extended run. Keep in mind, all of the first team snaps. So he's going to be playing with the first team, and he should probably play some with the second team because he's gotten first team snaps and also been on some second team practices, so extended 2-a-days for him. Devin Singletary from the Bills getting a lot of hype. They're saying that he's behind LaShawn McCoy and Frank Gore, who have been giving him a lot of confidence. They said that he's one of the most talented players they've ever seen, which is speaking volumes from a guy like LaShawn McCoy, who is one of the most talented running backs we have seen in the past decade. Keep an eye on him. He's a guy who is going to be the number 3 running back, and also keep an eye on TJ Yeldon, like we already said, the number 4 running back out there. Yeldon and definitely Singletary will be the guys who get the most run in sort of that second half of the game, the entire second half, the second quarter to the third quarter. Frank Gore is not going to see that much time. LaShawn McCoy is not going to see that much time. It's Devin Singletary. It's TJ Yeldon. Very excited to see the rookie Singletary. He's been getting a lot of hype, like we said. TJ Yeldon, the guy who's going to be in there really for pass catching opportunity. And I like the fact that he's been a veteran and now he's going to be going up against these busty third and fourth strings who are going to be terrible. So Devin Singletary, remember that name. Drew Lock is going to get significant run as well as a quarterback. We saw him in the Hall of Fame game. Significant run today. As the QB3 now instead of the QB2. So you have, like you had Joe Flacco who's going to come out there for not that much time. They said he's not going to be out there that long, not even a quarter. Then you have Hogan who's going to come out after that. And then you have Drew Lock. I'm not as excited in Lock as some of these other players, but whenever you hear significant run in the preseason, that means opportunity. Opportunity means fantasy points, and it's hard to find that opportunity in the preseason or at least know about it. So lots of quarterbacks we already listed today. We already listed Kyler Murray. Not that much interested because the ownership won't play as much. Very interested in Joe Webb and Teddy Bridgewater today. Dwayne Haskins is kind of mad to me. Drew Lock and Daniel Jones would sort of be like my 4th and 5th interest. So lots of interest in Joe Webb, lots of interest in Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback. Keep going down. Benny Fowler, we talked about the other day. Still interested in Benny Fowler as Daniel Jones' number 1 option right now. He's going to get extended run in this preseason because, again, they have a lot of injuries, a lot of suspensions. Golden State going to be suspended. No Odell. Sterling Shepard potentially not going to be ready for week 1. Definitely not the preseason. Corey Coleman tore his ACL. So these wide receiver corps right now, already before the season even starts, is really thin. It's Russell Shepard. It's Benny Fowler as of right now. That's going to start week 1 unless Shepard gets back. So he's been the favorite target as of right now for Daniel Jones. Threw a touchdown to him in the preseason, hopefully, or in training camp. Been looking his way the most, apparently, almost 2 times as much. So Benny Fowler is kind of this secret wide receiver that you can kind of key in on. Justin Jackson, Jalen Strong remain the same as the previous video. Justin Jackson, because of the fact that Melvin Gordon is not or is threatening not to play. Austin Eckler is going to be the lead dog, but I imagine now that gives a lot more opportunity for them to see what they have in Justin Jackson, as they did a little bit last year in the regular season. But being able to get to him more now in the preseason game, I think is going to be very beneficial. Chris Conley has been gelling with Nick Foles out in Jacksonville. Chris Conley has been he was a training. Or he was a combine stud, and he just didn't have the opportunities in KC for whatever reason, whether it was Tyreek Hill and some Travis Kelce kind of stealing all the shine from him, and Sammy Watkins coming there. But Chris Conley is a guy who in the preseason, they want to see what they have in him. They have D.D. Westbrook, who I imagine doesn't play in that first game. If he does, it won't be that long. He's kind of the number 1 wide receiver, and then there's no wide receiver 2, really no standout wide receiver 2. That very well could be Conley. So we'll see if he actually gets on the field. If he does get on the field, and I imagine he will, I have a lot of interest in Chris Conley as a wide receiver option. I think he's a guy who can burn you for a touchdown in this. I think they're going to be targeting to see what they have, and it seems like Nick Foles really, really likes him. They're gelling really good in practice, more so than a D.D. Westbrook and a Nick Foles. Just some other things to touch on. Hakeem Butler has been sort of a preseason darling as of late. He was graded out as some of the best deep ball skills in terms of having 20 targets last year in PFF's database for the Cardinals. So keep that in mind for this new offense that wants to play fast, go down the field, go to the middle of the field, actually push the ball down the field. This is probably the best guy that you can push the ball down the field to, Hakeem Butler. Remember that name. He's a wide receiver who is going to be more of a boom or bust guy, sort of like a Deshaun Jackson. But he's out there. Another guy in that same standpoint is Jake Kumerow. Jake Kumerow is on the Packers. He was a preseason darling last year. We kind of highlighted him in the video earlier. Aaron Rodgers says that he loves what Kumerow is doing. Even if it's not Aaron Rodgers out there throwing him the ball, Kumerow has been a guy who last year, 2 touchdowns, 2 deep bombs in the preseason, came back from injury, scored 1 or 2 touchdowns in the regular season for the Packers. He's a guy who's going to be out on the field in the second half to kind of get more run, as well as just overall extended run. He'll be sort of a late first half guy and a second half guy out there. Jake Kumerow, remember the name, he's got long hair. Pretty cool. Outside of that, Jacoby Brissett's going to be interesting today. He should get extended run with Andrew Luck kind of having more and more problems, and it's kind of getting swept under the rug a little bit, at least in terms of reporting news. I don't really watch TV, so maybe it's not, but reporting news on Twitter. Andrew Luck, this injury seems a little bit more naggy than it actually is, and Jacoby Brissett, who's a solid backup right behind the Patriots, he played a lot for the Colts when Luck was pretty much gone the entire season, so Yeah, Jacoby Brissett should get some more extended run than you usually would get if he is indeed the starter, which he should be the starter for this game. It hasn't been released yet, but I don't see how he's not. If he is the starter for this game, I imagine he plays a little bit more than the first quarter. Again, he's going to be playing against better defensive players compared to some of the other guys that we listed, like a Joe Webb, like a Teddy Bridgewater, so I'm not going to get to him as much, but it's just important to note that Jacoby Brissett should see extended run. Again, opportunity, more opportunity, that means something. We said Jalen Strong. Texans today, just in terms of more news, their backup running back job with no Foreman out there. It's Lamar Miller as the clear-cut number one. His stock went up for season-long fantasy a lot when there was no Foreman, and now it's kind of a backup job out there, so keep an eye on that. Nothing that I'm really keying in on because nobody's separated themselves in camp, but potentially for week 2 of the preseason, you'll find a Texans running back or a third-string guy, because right now nobody's standing out that I can say, okay, this guy is a good player, because none of them seem that good, or this guy's going to get more opportunities because he's playing well in camp. That's not the case. There's just nobody in the Texans backfield outside of Lamar Miller that is worth rostering in terms of the regular season right now. Lamar Miller is not going to play enough in this game for me to actually roster him anyways, so that's where I'm at with that. DK Metcalf, in terms of Tuesday's practice after I made the previous video, and in terms of yesterday's practice, has flourished. He's looked really good. Apparently, there's been a lot of talk of him running with the ones, the primary unit, but he's also going to get a good amount of run, they said, and I have it right here. He's going to have enough time to shine in this game. So I take that as opportunity. There you go. We're trying to read in between the lines as much as we can. So DK Metcalf is a wide receiver that I think is interesting today. So I think I got everybody. Mason Rudolph I also talked about as potentially a guy to look at. Josh Dobbs is going to be starting on Friday, but Mason Rudolph is a guy to look at as coming in after him, a guy of the future there, but that is not on today's slate, so we don't have to worry too much about that. Talked about Hakeem Butler. Lamar Jackson is another guy who, if I quickly look at this, Lamar Jackson should only be out there for at most a quarter if he's going to be out there at all. But I think they do want to test out this new offense that they have. And Lamar Jackson was one of the best fantasy points per dropback. He was the best fantasy point per dropback, way better than Patrick Mahomes when he was on the field. And that's because he was a rushing quarterback. It was like 0.83. I got that from an article that I saw on Twitter. I actually want to credit the guy's name, but I can't remember what it was right now. I'll put it in the link down below. But yeah, best fantasy point per dropback player. He's going to be, right now he's like going as quarterback 19, that article also said, and it's just way too low. He is going to be one of the best fantasy producers if he plays all year in season-long leagues. I'm excited to see what this new offense around him, now that they had a whole offseason to implement it around him and not Joe Flacco, I'm excited to see what that looks like. And I think that he's maybe not, he's like a preseason 3 type game because he'll play the whole first half. In this one, if he plays the first quarter, though, he can rush for 40 yards. He can rush in a touchdown. He can end up with 12 fantasy points like that. And that's why he has so much upside for the regular season and DFS season long. So that's where I'm at right now. I'll go through it again. Interest in terms of the running back position, Miles Sanders a lot, David Montgomery probably even more just in terms of the overall opportunities, but both of those guys are standing out as the 2 best running backs right now that are going to get significant run. For me at least, Tony Pollard is another one right there, Devin Singletary. So here's the thing. Miles Sanders probably not going to get as much run. David Montgomery will get more run, and he's an absolute monster it seems, so I like him a lot. Tony Pollard's going to be the guy that goes under the radar because he's this guy who's getting all the first team reps with Zeke out. They're going to give him extended run, and he's a playmaker both in the rushing and receiving game. You have Devin Singletary, who's going to be out there in the whole second half probably with TJ Yeldon, so I do like Devin Singletary. Keep in mind, all these guys are young. I'm pretty sure every single guy I named so far is a rookie. Not sure if Pollard is, but pretty sure. So that's 4 guys right there. And then, yeah, outside of that, I guess your 5th option could be sort of that TJ Yeldon right there with Singletary. So those are the running backs. Justin Jackson as well you can throw in. For quarterbacks, we already listed them. The ones I have the most interest in are sort of a Teddy Bridgewater and a Joe Webb because they're supposed to get significant run. They have rushing upside. They'll be playing against the terrible players the whole second half of the game. Another guy like Drew Lock will also be in there. He should get significant run. They already said he will. Whole second half of the game. He's going to be playing against third strings, and he's a quarterback they kind of drafted for the future. And then just wide receivers, Hakeem Butler is a deep threat for the Cardinals that they want to kind of implement. Chris Conley has been gelling very well with Nick Foles. DK Metcalf has been flourishing the last 2 days in practice. You saw so far that we had Benny Fowler. He has been kind of implementing himself very well with Daniel Jones so far. And Jay Kumru, Jalen Strong, other guys who are standing out in their specific camps. So that's it. That's like 20 names. Hopefully you followed all that. Hopefully that was informative. I know it was a lot, but I want to just help as much as I can in the preseason. There's no stats. I don't have a stats database like in my other videos that you can go off of, but this is the best thing that I can do to sort of get as much information out as possible. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, follow me on Twitter at SalVetriDFS. My daily fantasy course is going to be out at 10 a.m. Eastern time, probably by the time you watch this video. It will be linked down below. There will also be a link to kind of sign up for the email list down below as well, and that will get you a coupon or a discount for the course that's only going to be useful until the weekend, probably until tomorrow. So make sure you act on it quickly. I'm excited about the course. It has every single thing I know about daily fantasy sports in it: how to build data sheets, how to track your bankroll, logistics stuffs, not only like bankroll but contest selection, all that. So hit the subscribe button if you're new here. I'm excited about everything. There's free things down below. Again, follow me on Twitter for more information. I post news nonstop. So thank you so much. My name's Sal. Best of luck today, everybody. Peace out, gang.